Hello students, welcome to E-Padashala. I am Dr. Madhavan Nair from National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. Today's class is on a module that describes or discusses the functions of zinc. Zinc is a vital metal which is required for human body. It has many functions. There are so many enzymes that actually requires this, and the topic is on metabolism, and I am going to discuss about how we obtain this from the food and how it is utilized and how it is distributed in the body, how it circulates, and also how it is excreted from the body. So, let us go to the topic in proper. I am going to initially start discussing about the chemical and physical functions of the metal, followed by its distribution in the body, then function, then we will go into the requirements of this in the for individuals in the body. Also we will discuss about various aspects that will be useful for you to understand and probably apply in the future course of your studies. Or the objectives of the module is to learn about metabolism of zinc in humans, that is intake, digestion, absorption, transport, cellular uptake, storage and excretion. The second objective is to know the important biochemical functions of zinc, that is its catalytic, structural and regulatory functions. Third objective is to know the recommended dietary allowances for all the age groups and identify the dietary sources of zinc. And the fourth objective is to recognize the diseases caused due to zinc deficiency and the strategies adopted to control zinc deficiency. So, you are all aware of different metals that exist in universe, and most of these metals are essential for human life or essential for biological function. Zinc is one of the important element that is present in earth crust, and also it is important for all the living organisms in the planet. Zinc, this essentiality was discovered in 1989 for plants, followed by for animals in 1939. It was recognized as an element, essential element to human survival in 1963. This is known as a micronutrient because its requirement for the body is in small quantities to micrograms to milligram quantities, and so it is known as a micronutrient. Coming to the discovery of this metal for human survival, it was discovered by Dr. A.S. Prasad. He was actually investigating the deficiencies of this among Iranians and Egyptians in 1963. He found that many of the young adults was dwarf means the small stature, and he realized that there is some deficiency of metals for this adult dwarfs, and he supplemented and found that there was a significant increase in height, weight, bone development and sexual maturation. This was the initial studies that actually proved that zinc was essential for survival of humans. Now, why it is essential and what makes it essential is the next point we should understand. So, I am going to talk about the chemical properties that makes zinc as a vital nutrient. Zinc is an abundant metal in the human body. The most abundant metal is iron. Next to iron actually zinc comes, then copper comes. It is a non-toxic metal because it has a very tight metabolic control of entry of this into the human body, its distribution and excretion into the cells. It participates extensively in metabolism of all the biomolecules like protein, nucleic acid, carbohydrates and lipids. Biochemically, it is a very versatile molecule or a metal, as it participates in many of the biological functions, and there are three important properties we should understand. It does not undergo oxidation reduction like many of the other metals like iron and copper. It is actually zinc 2 plus, that is the oxidation state of this metal. It actually has a property known as Lewis acid, that is it can act as an acid and also as a base at neutral pH. This is a very important property of this micronutrient or element, that is zinc, that it can exist or it can participate in biological reaction at acid pH and alkaline pH, or it actually acts as an acid and base at neutral pH, or it is known as an amphoteric molecule. Then the next important property is it can actually forms different multiple geometries, that means it has actually different coordinates and it can link with different structures within the biological system, like for example proteins. Mainly it forms the protein complexes, and that folding or making it into different structures makes it essential for binding and biological reaction. Like as shown in this slide, you can see it has actually tetrahedral structure, geometry, then trigonal bipyramidal structure and octahedral structure. So all these actually makes zinc to adapt highly flexible, and it can actually form certain active sites of the enzymes, or it can form zinc fingers that participate in many of the biological reactions. As I said earlier, zinc we obtain it from food, and once it goes into the food, it gets accumulated in different parts of the body. The total amount of zinc present in a male and female is given in this slide. Female has less amount, about 1.5 grams of zinc in the whole body, compared to male, which is around 2.5 grams. The highest concentration of zinc is present in skeletal muscle, about 57%, followed by bone. That means they are all known as deposits of zinc present in muscle and bone. The other tissues are about 6 to 5%, and very small amounts present in brain, kidney, heart and hair, and very small amount, about 0.1% of it is found in blood plasma, which is normally participate in many of the biological reactions. Now I will discuss about the zinc metabolism, or it is also known as zinc balance, because it actually integrates different aspects of metabolism. That is one side you can see dietary intake, the dietary sources, which is actually around 7 to 12 milligrams that you get obtained from the diet we take. Also there is another source which is from the endogenous source, from body itself. Some of the secretions like pancreatic secretions, biliary secretions, they actually provide some amount of zinc which is actually reabsorbed through the intestine, and what is not absorbed is excreted through the feces. That is around you can see it is around 1.57 milligrams out of 7 and 7 plus 3, around 10 milligrams of zinc taken every day, and about 1.5 milligrams actually is absorbed every day, which is actually distributed into various body tissues. See, about 2.5 milligrams is in circulation, and out of that about 70% of the zinc that gets absorbed is actually bound to albumin, which is in the circulation. Then that also is actually in homeostasis with or in equilibrium with the other target tissues, like I said, skeletal muscle, bone, marrow, liver, lung and skin. These are the organs that actually stores zinc, and in when it is required, when there is a deficiency of zinc, they actually redistribute to plasma, and it maintains the plasma concentration throughout the life cycle. So when there is a depletion of all this storage zinc, then only we actually find very low amounts of plasma zinc. The other important area that we need to understand is its excretion. So you can see there are excretion into the breast milk. So milk is actually the major source of zinc for infants. That's why exclusive breastfeeding is essential during early first 6 months, because breast milk provides zinc. Then there are excretions through seminal fluids and the menstrual loss, then through urine, and also from other losses like the exfoliation of cells within the intestine, like integument, then sweat and hair. This all contributes to about 1 milligram of loss of iron from the body every day. So this is how actually the human body maintains a balance, and the whole system, the integrated system actually is the zinc metabolism. Also you have the functional aspects that we will discuss in the following slides. So we will first discuss about the absorption of zinc. Absorption takes place throughout the intestine. You know, intestine is actually you have the small intestine and large intestine, and the major site for zinc absorption is jejunum, and some amount of it is absorbed in the ileum. And absorption of zinc is increased in deficiency, and the absorption is not dependent on how much you take. And there are two ways actually the intestine takes zinc from the lumen or the digested food. One is the mediated process, that is known as, it's through saturable process, mostly it is through transporters, and the second process is non-mediated process, mainly passive diffusion of zinc from the luminal content to the intestine. Also from the intestine it is actually circulated through the portal system, it gets into the blood, and in blood actually it circulates bound to albumin. It's about 7, I told you that it actually almost 70% of it is bound to albumin. This is a schematic representation of absorption in the intestinal cells. It is known as enterocyte or the absorptive surface. The absorption takes place in jejunum and ileum, and this is where actually the whole absorption takes place. You can see the mucosa is the first site for zinc absorption, and the other side is serosal, which is actually in contact with the blood plasma. Zinc through transporters, it will actually gets into the cytosol, and in cytosol you have actually non-specific binding protein which will bind. Also you have cysteine rich proteins in the cytosol which can actually take up zinc from, actually it recycles zinc depending upon the requirement of the body. And you have another protein which actually is again a zinc dependent protein, metallothionein, which is a zinc binding protein, which is essential for the transport, also storage of zinc in various tissues. And then the other transport system is actually non-saturable one, which is passive. That means there is no transporters involved. Zinc actually from your luminal content it enters mucosa, and through cytosol it will reach the blood plasma, then it will bind to the albumin and it will circulate in the body. Now once it is absorbed and it is bound to the blood albumin or plasma albumin, it will go to different tissues, the target tissues. You can see it is, as I said earlier, it is a very, very tightly controlled mechanism that actually makes zinc a very important metal, and also it is non-toxic because of the tight mechanism of absorption and transport into the cell and out of cell. There are two types of transporters, and there are total of 24 transporters involved in the cellular metabolism of zinc. And these transporters are, some of them are very specific for certain tissues. Now we don't go into those details, but you can see the Z and T, they are known as zinc transporter, which exports zinc from inside to outside. That means it will reduce cellular zinc status. And the other transporter is ZIP, which will import zinc, and also that means it increases cellular ion content, importer and exporter. And the most important ZIP protein is ZIP4, which is actually found in intestine, and it controls the uptake process of zinc from the luminal content to the serosal side and to the blood. Once it is in the blood, it will actually bind to albumin, and only 0.1% of the absorbed one will actually retained in the blood plasma, the remaining is actually distributed to the other tissues. Albumin is the major carrier. It binds to albumin by tetrahedral ligation to sulfur atoms. You know cysteine and histidine, these are the two amino acids essentially involved in the zinc binding. So, the zinc binds to the sulfur amino acids of cysteine and histidine. Now, 70% of zinc is bound to albumin, 20 to 30% of the remaining will be bound to alpha 2 macroglobulin. Then other plasma proteins are transferrin, then you have histidine rich glycoprotein and metallothionein. Plasma zinc concentration respond to external stimuli like intake fluctuations, fasting, acute stress. In infection also it will actually there is a change in the uptake process. Plasma zinc levels do not influence absorption from mucosa. Most reductions in plasma level reflects increased hepatic uptake. There is also reported hormonal control which is regulate in the uptake of zinc. Now, the next important aspect of metabolism is function, because ultimately why we require the zinc, what is its functional aspects. So, this subsequent slides will discuss about functions. There are approximately 300 enzymes that are associated with zinc, and its role in metabolism is well known: protein synthesis, nucleic acid metabolism, carbohydrate and energy production, then lipid metabolism, epithelial cell integrity like skin integrity, then you have cell repair and division which is known as apoptosis, vitamin A and vitamin E transport and utilization, immune function, zinc immune function, reproductive hormones or reproductive function. So, there is a deficiency of zinc, all these functions are reduced, that is its immune function. So, when you have low zinc status, you will be susceptible for infection and inflammation. This is the only metal that is present in 6 enzyme classes. You have actually in the enzymes that are involved in biological process, there are 6 types, and this is the only metal which is required for 6 classes of enzyme for its function. So, it is very vital for this enzyme function. Zinc performs different functions at different zinc binding sites on enzyme. These are the examples: oxidoreductase. I have given examples like alcohol dehydrogenase, superoxide dismutase are the examples for oxidoreductase. Transferases examples: RNA polymerase and aspartate transcarbamylase, hydrolase, carboxypeptidase and thermolysin, lyases, carbonic anhydrase and fructose 1,6 biphosphate aldolase. Then you have isomerase, example phosphomanose and isomerase, ligases, example pyruvate carboxylase and amino acyl RNA synthase. So, these are some of the 6 enzyme classes where zinc is very essential. But when you discuss about zinc, these are the essential functions, that it acts as a catalyst, it acts as a structural component, also it acts as a regulatory molecule. Now, under these 3 categories we will discuss and find out what is the catalytic role, how actually zinc plays a catalyst, then structural integrity, how actually zinc is involved in structural integration, and also the regulatory aspect. For example, as I said earlier, it is involved in many of the functions, enzyme functions. Enzymes will have active site. This metal actually participate in some of the catalytic site formation and the reactions. So, catalysis is what actually the enzyme is mainly meant for, and this without this metal there is no catalysis. You can see here, this is an enzyme carbonic anhydrase, which actually the zinc binds to, forms actually accepts hydrogen ions, the deprotonation. So, there is hydrogen is removed, and then there is a carboxylation where carbon dioxide is added, then you have ring formation and also formation of bicarbonate. So, carbonic anhydrase actually involved in formation of bicarbonate, and these are the important reaction that actually involved in the catalysis of the carbonic anhydrase. So, you can see it is the central role in creating that microenvironment for the enzyme to perform the catalysis. Then you have the second important function, structural function. Now you can see certain proteins, they actually bring about its biological function when they are actually forms aggregates or they assemble to form different structures. So zinc helps folding of proteins into 3-dimensional configuration. Under that 3-dimensional geometry only your function will take place, or it is binding to the receptors and various other molecules and bring about the function, the downstream events. Here the example given is insulin. Insulin, as it's actually deficiency of insulin, it reduces your ability to metabolize glucose and it leads to diabetes mellitus. So hyperglycemia. So what happens, the zinc actually brings about a structural modification, folding of the protein for it to do the function. So here 6 insulin molecule assembled in a form of hexamer, which is stored form of insulin. Now you can see the central portion, what you see is the zinc, the pink sphere. So zinc ion holding insulin molecule, there are 6 insulin molecules that is joined in a 6-fold symmetry, and it binds to the histidine residues, all the zinc, all the 6 insulin molecules forming a 3-fold symmetry of insulin, and this is the form in which insulin is stored in pancreas. So in response to glucose stimuli, it is released into the circulation. So we are discussing about regulatory function. So for regulation, this is with respect to nuclear transcription factor. This factor is involved in from DNA to RNA. There are certain nuclear transcription factors, and zinc binds to those factors. There are protein motifs, and it binds to the cysteine and histidine residues on the molecule and create a finger like structure which is involved in the binding, and it accounts for about 1% of the genome. Involved virtually in all biological, because it's of course it is the main regulation that takes place in the cell. So zinc is very much involved in the development, differentiation, cell proliferation, because it is part of the DNA regulatory function, and zinc performs its regulatory functions through zinc finger motifs, which is a protein and is known to bind DNA, RNA or protein. The next shown you how actually a zinc finger forms. You can see these are the cysteine. It will actually have a alpha helix structure protein and a beta sheet structure. 2 are there, these 2, and you have cysteine residues on this beta sheet and histidine on the alpha helix. There are 2 histidines from the alpha helix, so it forms again a geometry convenient for it to create that structure, the finger like structure, and that chelation actually creates a 3-dimensional structure enough for it to bind and perform its function. In addition to those 3, that is catalytic, regulatory and structural role, it also acts as a co-catalyst molecule or a metal. That means in addition to its own, it can enhance the activity of another metal. The zinc binding site occurs in enzymes that contain 2 or more zinc atoms in close proximity to one another, and magnesium ion to form a bridge between 2 of the participating metal ions. You can see the bridge being formed between these 2 metals. In addition to these functions, the other functions, I mean these are all the in terms of general functions. It is involved in metabolism of carbohydrate, lipids, protein and nucleic acid, and it is part of the reproductive hormones. Then in terms of wound healing, membrane stabilization, then calcification and mineralization of bone. It acts as an antioxidant, it functions of insulin, then immunity. So out of these, the well known functions are in terms of immunity, then insulin function, and you have the metabolism of carbohydrate, lipids, protein and nucleic acid. So, you have seen that it has large number of functions, and in the absence of the zinc in your diet, you become deficient, and that lead to lot of functional implications. Now, how do we obtain the zinc every day that is required for our body function? So, and how much is required? How much is required is the requirement, and how much you need to obtain from food is known as recommended dietary allowance or RDA. So, the Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, has now done an exercise of computing the requirement and also the recommended dietary allowance for Indians, and there is a book on this, the nutrient requirements and recommended dietary allowance for Indians. The requirements are actually obtained through factorial approach, which involves now the losses, okay, because ultimately how much is lost needs to be balanced through intake. So, what is that factorial approach? You have actually the endogenous loss, which is actually the loss which is from the body, and it accounts for about 1.67 milligrams per day. Then you have an integumental loss, that is exfoliation of the intestinal cells every day, which contributes to about 0.43 milligrams of zinc, and urinary excretion, which is about 0.53. So, total requirement, body requirement for zinc is about 2.7 milligrams per day. Now, to get 2.7 milligrams from diet, everyday diet, you know that you have a diet which is very complex, and all the zinc present in the body is not absorbed because there are so many complexes it forms with the ligands of diet, which makes it unavailable. So, out of the total dietary zinc present, only 25% of zinc is only absorbed from diet. So, you need about 12 milligrams of milligram per day to get about 2.7 milligrams at absorption of 25%. So, 25% absorption, we get about 2.7 milligrams from a diet containing 12 milligrams of zinc. And the highest amount of zinc is required, you can see, from boys and girls, and in pregnancy. Pregnancy and lactation also requires high amounts of zinc compared to the other age groups. Of course, there is an increased requirement with increasing age. Children requires about 5 milligrams. Even there is a deficiency of children, they become immunocompromised, and also there will be growth stunting because of lack of zinc in the diet. They will be subjected to infection, respiratory infection, diarrhea, related problems, morbidities. Now, what are the richest source of zinc? As I showed you earlier, about 7 to 10 milligrams of zinc you need every day from diet. The richest source is actually the foods like fish, meat, and also the other fresh foods, which are rich sources of zinc. In addition to that, milk has a good amount. Then coming to vegetarian sources, all the nuts like ground nuts, cashew nuts, and all the legumes. You can see the legumes like peas, then all the bala gram, red gram and green gram dals. These are the legumes which are rich sources of zinc. So, there is the need for taking zinc by increasing the intake of these pulses, nuts in the case of vegetarians, but in the case of non-vegetarians, they get from a good amount of zinc from non-vegetarian food sources. As I said earlier, the zinc absorption is only 25% because there are different factors that affect zinc absorption. The first and most important one is the dietary factors. Our diet contains certain amount of inhibitors that inhibit the absorption of zinc into the intestine and to the blood. The best known inhibitors are calcium and phytate, which form complexes with zinc, and it does not allow zinc to get absorbed. So, you should not allow zinc to be taken, high amount of zinc supplement taken with your diet. It should be taken away from your main meals. Then there are phytates. Phytates are normally present in most of the pulses, and they also inhibit absorption of zinc. And a molar ratio of phosphate to zinc or the phytate to zinc molar ratio more than 10 is supposed to be very inhibitory diet. It inhibits absorption of zinc, and that can lead to deficiency. There are promoters of zinc like the amino acids histidine, cysteine, which normally present in non-vegetarian foods like meat and fish and other eggs also. So, histidine and cysteine, which you have already seen, these are the two amino acids involved in the binding of zinc and forming the part of zinc fingers, enzyme activity. So, these two are very much involved in the absorption of zinc also. Then there are host factors, that means the individual's status of zinc also influences absorption. Efficiency can vary 15 to 60%. Under normal circumstances, only 1/3 of zinc is absorbed, that is about 30 to 35% is absorbed. Zinc status alters efficient zinc absorption, that means in deficiency the absorption will be better. Uptake and retention is more during growth phase, that is in children, and during development of muscles, that is when you become childhood to adolescence. Boys and girls require additional zinc because for their growth, muscle mass, and also the losses due to the other excretory pathways. Now, how do we assess zinc status? That means we should know what are the biomarkers that will reflect the zinc status of an individual. Now, in the body it is distributed in different parts. You have seen only 0.01% is in the circulation and bound to albumin. So, this is in actually in equilibrium with various tissues, and that homeostasis actually is what actually keeps the circulating zinc in an appropriate amount. So, measuring zinc, plasma zinc or serum zinc is a biomarker. So, if there is a decrease, you can say that the individual is going into zinc deficiency, and they actually go into serious complications of growth retardation, and also in pregnancy, of course, it can have serious complications. Hair zinc concentration also is also known to reflect the status, because when there is a deficiency of zinc in an individual, their hair becomes very sparse and it becomes pale also. Then urinary zinc concentration also, it will actually inform you about the status. Coming to the last part of the lecture, we should understand what are the signs and symptoms of zinc deficiency. Mainly it affects skin. Skin lesions are very much part of zinc deficiency. Like you get pimples like boils, which will be due to long term zinc deficiency, and also it is a skin disease, so which can be cured with zinc supplementation. Hypogonadism, it's actually reduced circulating testosterone that will lead to hypogonadism, and that also is a zinc signs of zinc deficiency. Anorexia, that is lack of appetite, that also is a deficiency of zinc. Impairment in taste and smell. Zinc deficient individuals they have a difficulty in taste and also smell. zinc deficiency contributes to increased incidence and severity of diarrhea. You know, there is a supplement which is normally you take when you are diarrhea, having diarrhea, that is ORS, oral rehydration solution, and along with that zinc is a part of a supplement which will actually normalizes your the electrolyte balance plus the mucosal surface. Now the final part of our discussion is deficiency during pregnancy, because this is a critical stage at which, you know, if there is a deficiency, even the implantation of the blastocyte and even the deficiency leads to abnormalities of the blastocyte development, and also it can result in low birth weight and prolonged and difficult parturition. Most of these are done in experimental animals. You can see here, see these are all zinc deficiency in pregnancy leading to malformation. So you have cleft lip, that is you have the lips which are cut, then cleft palate, then brain, you have hydrocephalus, encephalus, heart abnormal position, lung missing lobes, urogenital then dysfunction, limbs and eye. All these are mainly because of serious deficiency of severe deficiency of zinc. So I mean, especially in the critical stage of development in utero, it is very, very essential. Also in the early stages of development, that's infancy. That's why breast milk provide exclusive breastfeeding is very, very essential during that stage. Now what are the strategies, how actually you can control? Now we know that the most of the zinc is obtained from diet. So the diet means the plant sources mainly assimilate zinc from the soil. So soil wherever the your produce are grown should have sufficient zinc. So normally the agriculture scientists or the farmers use zinc fertilizer, so that it increases yield and also it provides sufficient zinc in the grain. This is called agronomic biofortification. Then the second one is fortification of these cereals and pulses what we eat. We can add zinc, like iodized salt, you can add zinc to the food and fortify it, and also that's a way of increasing zinc intake. The third important one is dietary diversification of zinc rich food, that is like including, if you are a non-vegetarian, increase the intake of meat, fish, or if you are a vegetarian, eat nuts, whole grains and legumes, and also the yeast which is actually used for preparing bread. Oral zinc supplementation to children has been shown to reduce the duration and diarrheal episodes. So whenever a child is suffering from diarrhea, ORS with zinc supplement is a national program, and that should be adopted to reduce the severity of diarrhea. Oral repletion via supplements are there. There are many supplements, vitamin mineral supplements which contain zinc, and in this zinc gluconate, sulfate and acetate are the forms in which it is provided. So these are the different aspects of zinc metabolism. Coming to the toxicity, basically it doesn't have any toxicity except for increased intake may compromise metabolism of the other related metals like copper and iron metabolism. So with this you got a very integrated aspect of the zinc metabolism. So let's conclude this session. You understood now the importance of zinc as a micronutrient, as a essential element for growth, development, and also to perform immune functions of the body. It is obtained from food which we eat normally, and there are different factors that actually influence absorption. It is only 25% that is absorbed. and you need to have about depending upon the age and sex, there is about 3 to 12 milligrams of zinc required per day, and that can be obtained from different sources. Deficiency is another important thing. There are in our country deficiency is a problem. It is mainly because of lack of food, and also the diversified food that we are not having it every day. Without that it is difficult probably to get the amount that is required for the body. There are different strategies I have discussed. It is either through enriching the grain zinc through agriculture process, that is agronomic fortification, or the normal fortification like we add zinc salt to the normally consumed food, like the iodized salt what I said. The other important strategy to control zinc deficiency, especially in children, is having a good IYCF, that is infant and child feeding practices, that is required for they need to get a sufficient amount of food. These are all strategies that is required. In addition to, there are medicinal supplements required only when there is a severe deficiency. Otherwise, you should be able to get the required amount of zinc through the diet we eat, and we should be able to meet the requirements of the zinc every day. So, I hope that this lesson makes you understand the importance of this, the essential functions of this micronutrient, and also gives a basic understanding about the metabolism, that is absorption and its distribution. Then of course, the important one is functions, the 3 catalytic, regulatory and structural role of this metal in carrying out many biological functions in the body. Thank you.